This is the Outlap F1 podcast featuring America's own Cody, Andy, and Deanna. Your one-stop shop for Formula One news, insights, race previews, and reviews. Join us on the Outlap.
I'd say go ahead and say that one delivered. If you wanted drama, some weather, some weirdness, some craziness, and overtaking galore, the Brazil Grand Prix gave it to you in spades this weekend. Welcome on in. We are glad you are here. This is season 7. This will be episode number 41 of the Outlap F1 podcast. It's our 2025 Sao Paulo GP review show. And I've just finally finished, I think, catching my breath after that weekend, but you've got Andy, and I'm along with Cody tonight. It's good to see you again, sir. How is it hanging? And do you have any heart rhythm left? I don't know that I do.
It's going pretty well. As far as where my heart stands with the race weekend, it's pretty broken at this point. But it's gonna be okay. It's time for a new champion, I think. We'll get into that in a second.
Yeah, I mean, if he went down, if this is the end. And I'm not saying that it is the end because I don't count the guy out for nothing. He went down swinging and throwing haymakers aplenty all weekend and almost did something that has never been seen in the 75 years that they've been running cars around in circles. But anyway, we will talk about all of that, the good, the bad, and some of the weird. But if you have found our show, as always, welcome along. We are glad you are here. You can find us on X, on Instagram, sometimes on Discord, Reddit, always here on YouTube at Outlap F1 Podcast. Is the handle for all of that. If you enjoy what you're seeing and you like what you're hearing in terms of the stuff we say, if you want to do us a favor on YouTube, leave us a like, or you can subscribe to the channel. If you want to leave us a 5-star review on your favorite podcasting app, because we do broadcast on all of those as well. Apple Podcasts, Spotify are two of the big ones. There's some other ones. We're in a lot of different places, actually, if you look for us. But Outlap F1 Podcast is the handle for all those spots. You can email the show, as always, outlapf1@gmail.com. Thank you so much to our continued supporters. You guys all know this list. These people are wonderful. Thank you so much to Dean Warwick, Yuri Dolchester, Paul Weaver, Quentin Warden, Kevin Kelly, Regan Stanzik, Timothy Brown, and, of course, Jonathan Scott. Kevin Kelly was telling me, do you have enough notes only on lap 6? I said it's going to be a 3-hour show at this point. But we're going to get into all that in just a little bit. But if you'd like to become a member of that esteemed list, do us a solid. We have a link tree in our, we have a anchor page in our show notes, It does ask for a small little monetary donation. Do you have to give us any money? No, of course not. We're just glad you're listening. But if you wanted to do so, we would be most grateful. And that would help us keep our technology relevant in this ever-changing tech world that we live in. Oh, man, what a weekend. We'll start with our headlines of the day. Cody, I'll let you go first. What you got?
My headline is that I am in the ironic position of being disappointed with the results of a world-class drive. Max Verstappen had it all going wrong with him in the earlier parts of the weekend and managed to make one of the greatest comeback drives we've ever seen by going from pit lane start to finishing on the podium. That said, Lando Norris had a bit of magic himself and managed to finish at the top of every session this weekend. That extends his point lead to the point where we are back in the realm of it being extraordinarily unlikely for Max to win the championship. And at this point, getting into the realm of it being very unlikely for Oscar Piastri to make any kind of comeback. I got to say that with his performance over the last 2 race weekends, though, that I'm ready to concede that Lando Norris deserves to win the championship.
I'm not counting my chickens before they hatch yet, man. I've seen too much weird in my life. But my headline is, at least for this weekend, was the cream rises to the top. My Lord, Max put on a Sunday show. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Lando maxed out on the points, which was, I think, the more important thing for him. He's opened up the gap. We'll talk about kind of what happened. We'll talk about Oscar Piastri's one very just unfortunate thing that happened to him in the sprint. And then 2, the penalty that I'm kind of smarting at, but I understand why. And it's just, I hate these rules. I hate these overtaking rules. They just suck. And it boxes us into a corner, and it just feels like we have to assign blame for everything. But anyway, I'm going to get into that when we get there. But we will start way back. Let's rewind all the way back to Friday, the sprint qualifying that saw, all right, going out in P20, not having a good start to his weekend. That was Carlos Sainz in the Williams. P19 was Esteban Ocon in the Haas. P18, Yuki Tsunoda, the beginning of a painful start to the weekend for Red Bull. That was definitely on offer. P17 was Liam Lawson. P16 was Franco Colapinto. P15 was Ollie Behrman. P14 was Gabby Bortoleto. P13 was Pierre Gasly. P12, Alex Albon. P11, out in SQ2. This was a bit of a surprise. Lewis Hamilton in the Ferrari, did not see that one coming. The top 10 from 10 to 1 in the sprint shootout. P10 was Nico Hülkenberg in the Kick Sauber. P9, Isaac Hadjar in the Racing Bull. P8 was Charles Leclerc, so Ferrari definitely off the pace early. P7, Lance Stroll. Hey, where did that come from? P6, another reflection of the tough start to the weekend. Max Verstappen in the Red Bull, only good for P6. P5, Fernando Alonso. That was a bit of a surprise for the Aston Martin. P4 was George Russell. P3 was Oscar Piastri, so a decent start, but not great. P2, one of the stars, I think, of the weekend throughout was Kimi Antonelli in the Mercedes. Lando Norris came to play and ends up taking sprint pole with a lap time of 109.243 seconds. All right. Cody, big thoughts in the first session of the weekend that mattered, the sprint qualifying.
Well, I was already a bit afraid for Max Verstappen's performance this weekend right out of the gate when he's qualifying 6th for the sprint. Normally, the sprint has Max's name all over it. So when he was qualifying outside of the front row and actually several rows back, I was like, oh no, hopefully they can put this together for the session that really matters later on. And as we're going to get into, that did not happen. Also, Lando Norris looking really good right out of the gate this weekend. Top of practice, top of sprint qualifying. He's looking good there. I guess the biggest surprise for me out of all this, though, was Kimi Antonelli having a bit of a comeback here and finishing sprint qualifying on the front row, which was awesome for him. Oscar Piastri not doing too bad either. A couple tenths off of Lando Norris to start off the competitive sessions of the weekend, but definitely not out of it at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it was it was a weird. The tires felt kind of weird because medium tire, which you have to go out in SQ1 and SQ2, seemed like the tire that everybody really, really liked. Even in the practices, you didn't see, usually at the end of one of these sprint weekends, everybody throws on the soft tires and we kind of see where everybody's at. This wasn't the case. Everybody ran the hard tire early just to kind of get dial in the balance and everything. And then the big heavy hitters were all switching over to the mediums. So that was a surprise just early. And then you could even tell when they got to the soft tire, I don't think most people really liked it. In fact, the only two that did any better were the top two, and Kimi Antonelli and Lando Norris. And it wasn't by, big stretches. I think Lando only improves by a tenth on the soft tire, which normally you see 2-3 tenths. You almost would think, oh, you look at the SQ2 time, we may see a 108 around here, but not to be. But yeah, I mean, Max Verstappen shaking his head as he crossed the line in sprint qualifying. That was definitely not a good sign. He was not a very happy bunny. It seemed like the middle sector was just killing the Red Bull. Like they had gone for what they tend to do a lot is kind of, take the downforce off, let Max deal with it and, get through the twisty bits good enough. But those long straights, Max was right on the McLarens and the Mercedes for sector 1 and sector 3. Like it's a matter of hundredths, but it's that middle sector where it was like 6 tenths or something was the difference that was killing him there. So not happy early for sure. Endo getting dialed in early, which was kind of a big thing. They showed the stat where it just said, sprint victories, and Max has got like 13 of them, and the next highest person has like 3. So I mean, normally Max is Mr. Sprint, but not good out of the box early. That was a surprise. I did not expect that, especially given the Austin form and given that the weather's kind of similar. It was hot. This was the early part of the weekend. The rain had not arrived yet. So yeah, just kind of a surprise, a not expected top 10 for sure. So we move into the Saturday sprint, and the Saturday sprint was very, very eventful. I almost texted you on lap 5 and said, the best part about this sprint is not much has happened yet. And I really, really didn't. I had it half typed and I didn't send it because then all sorts of holy hell broke loose. But we'll talk about that in a minute. Here comes your sprint result. All right. Not being classified. These two drivers, same lap 5, lap 6, turned out to be really, really important. Franco Colapinto out. Oscar Piastri also out. a killer for his championship hopes here. P18 was Gabby Bortoletto. Boy, was that a scary crash. I am so happy that he got out of that car because that thing looked insanely scary. It could have been a lot worse. So testament to everybody at the FIA for all the safety stuff that they do. You give them a lot of shit, but when it comes to safety, they got it. P17, Alex Albon. P16 was Liam Lawson. P15 was Nico Hulkenberg. P14 was Carlos Sainz. P13 was Yuki Tsunoda. P12 was Ali Behrman. P11 was Esteban Ocon. P10 was Isaac Hadjar. P9, just missing out on the points, was Lance Stroll. Your point finishers, P8, Pierre Gasly. Hey, Alpine! When was the last time we had Alpine in the points anywhere? That's a long time. So they get off their schneid there. P7, Lewis Hamilton. P6, Fernando Alonso. P5 was Charles Leclerc. P4 was Max Verstappen, up 2 positions from where he qualified. P3 was George Russell. P2, you almost thought had a shot at the win late, was Kimi Antonelli. And P1, hanging on at the end, at least early, was Lando Norris, maxing out on the sprint points here. All right, well, we got to talk about lap 6. That was probably the defining moment. The rain had arrived overnight. And what the forecast was they thought that there was going to be some sort of like a tropical cyclone that could potentially have parked itself over Sao Paulo. And, they were talking about maybe canceling the sessions or moving the sessions or, what has to happen if they can't get these things in. But cat having fun there. But as
tell by her color, she's a McLaren fan.
papaya love, I love it. But what happened was that storm system basically blew itself out, but it was still a very low pressure system. So you didn't have as much rain as you thought, but it was wet early in the morning. But the wind had kicked up, so we got to the sprint. And the track had dried out, I would say 75% of the way. But it was enough to start on slicks, but it was still pretty slippy. So you get through the first few laps. And now the other part of, which is kind of unique to the Brazil circuit, is they diamond cut parts of the track to allow the water to kind of flow down the hill and get off the track. Well, that's fine until it hits one of these curbs where it kind of levels off. And what does water do when it finds a low spot? It tends to pool there. And what happened was, as the drivers are getting more and more confident, more and more drier lines are forming, they start going on the curb. And you wouldn't necessarily recommend that anybody do that. Now, I hearken back to the British Grand Prix at the end of the race. Lando Norris is on his set of I think it was medium tires or slick tires, and he's going through maggots and Beckett's, and he's all of a sudden you just see this thing of spray come off of his tire. And I'm like, God damn, dude, you're playing with disaster here. And then all of a sudden you get to this onboard here, and he's going onto the curb, and you see this thing of water go shoot up. Well, Antonelli goes through it, and he gets through it fine. Oscar Piastri gets to it, and he even took more curb than Lando did. He did not get through it fine. He spins out. Max Verstappen damn near almost spun out. He got lucky to save it. And then it was kind of there was a huge chain reaction in the back. Franco Colapinto spins out. Nico Hulkenberg spins out in the same spot. They're all lucky that we didn't have 3 cars collide with each other, because it was just one of those things. Like, people thought maybe it had started to rain. It hadn't really started to rain, but instant safety car, instant then red flag because the barriers got damaged. But the net result of it is Oscar Piastri, in a weekend where he absolutely did not need this to happen, has it happen to him again in the sprint. That's 2 in a row. Ouch, ouch, ouch. Yikes. Cody, what was your thought on the lap 5 stuff?
That it was really hairy. They were talking about how at a few parts of the track, it was still wet, even though it was not actively raining, and most of the track appeared to be dry by the time they actually got going. But yeah, I kind of went nuts when they had the camera shot of, you could see Oscar Piastri spinning out in the background, and then everyone else like piles up around him. And I was like, holy crap, that just got way more intense than I was expecting this to be. I thought it was going to be pretty much a single file from start to finish without anyone really doing anything too crazy. The Mercedes ended up wrapping up the sprint podium out of this, which ended up being really good for them. And Max Verstappen doesn't lose as many points on Lando as he could have. something else that happened in the session. I believe it was the session, right, where Gabriel Bortoleto at the end of the sprint
Oh, my
had a
Lord.
really nasty crash.
Yeah, I mean, that thing was just really scary. So what happened was they red flagged it. You almost never see a red flag in a sprint. So everybody comes into the pits, and because they didn't announce whether it was going to be a rolling start or a standing start, all the teams, like I heard both the McLaren radios tell, well, obviously not to Oscar at that point, but the radio to Lando was, we think this is going to be a standing start. Therefore, because the tires that they were on, even though they had only done 5 laps, had already done a start, they were concerned about getting off the line. So they swapped Lando over from the medium to the soft, which was the not necessarily the preferred tire. And it worked okay. As it turned out, they ended up announcing a rolling start, which surprised the hell out of me. But I think given what they saw going into the turn one and how it all played out, I guess it's probably why they did it.
I think maybe even more than that is, on these sprint weekends, you have to go from the sprint race into your real qualifying, you're qualifying for the Grand Prix session. And while there is a few hours in between the two, I think they were worried about maybe if they did another standing start with the conditions on track, that even if it was dry enough for another standing start, what happens if you end up having more cars crash out and you have to red flag it again, and you're starting to not really allow enough time for cars that have been damaged to potentially get repaired for qualifying, and that starts to get messy. So that's kind of, in my opinion, why maybe they went with the rolling start. It seemed like they had already done a standing start and it went okay. So to me, that was enough to say, hey, another standing start is probably fine as far as safety goes. But
yeah, it was one of those that just, I was surprised. I didn't necessarily understand it, but I'm like, well, I'll take it.
Yeah,
but Lando's now on.
Worked out for anyone running in front.
Yeah, I mean, what it amounted to was but Lando was on not necessarily the preferred tire, because Antonelli was on the softs. He boxes and switches over to the mediums. Now, granted, they're all used tires at this point because nobody wants to touch their qualifying allocations. But still, Lando's on a set of tires that a used set of softs. And by the end of the race, there was one point Antonelli was legitimately in DRS, and I thought was in maybe a position to try a move. And then he actually got a gust of wind that kind of locked him up and cost him like 2-3 tenths. So it was a very nervous sprint all the way around until the end of it. And I was just kind of happy it was over by the time we got to it. But yeah, I mean, if you're a Lando fan, this is kind of almost exactly what you would have dialed up if you're being Machiavellian about it. I saw some theories out there that said that, maybe Lando tried to do it in purpose. I don't think he's that good. I think he's good. I don't think he's good enough to try the Mario Kart banana peel maneuver on everybody, and I don't think he's trying to do that. I think they both actually made mistakes. I think Oscar got caught out way too much on that curb, and that's what basically cost him. And it was a mistake he probably didn't even have to make. I mean, he was probably secure in his position as long as he just brings it home. So, yeah, I mean, the Red Sea kind of opened for Lando here. He picks up 3 points on Max and picks up 8 points on Piastri. So it went from 1 to 9 going into Sunday. Other thoughts in the sprint, good to see actually Gasly get a point. Good to see Alpine kind of get off the marker there. A little bit of struggles for the Ferraris. That was a theme of what was to come. But we all thought, at least I texted you right away. I said that the time between the sprint and the main quali was going to be critical for Red Bull. I thought that was like where they would get it together. And well, we're going to talk about the main qualifying as soon as I can find my sound for it. Here we go. All right, going out in P20, he did not start. He had that bad wreck. The Sauber mechanics, boy, did they try to get his ass out there, but he just couldn't get it done. Gabby Bortoleto did not start the qualifying session. P19 was Yuki Tsunoda. P18 was Franco Colapinto. P17 was Esteban Ocon. And P16, like the thud it's going to sound like, Max Verstappen out in Q1. Did not see that one coming. P15 was Carlos Sainz. P14 was Lance Stroll. P13 was Lewis Hamilton. P12 was Alex Albon. P11 was Fernando Alonso. The top 10 from 10 to 1. P10 was Nico Hulkenberg in the Kick Sauber. P9, Pierre Gasly. P8, Oliver Behrman, who was flirting with the top 3 in Q2. on legit pace. P7, Liam Lawson. P6 was George Russell. P5 was Isaac Hadjar. Both racing bulls well out qualifying the works team here. P4, Oscar Piastri, not the world's greatest effort after the sprint, but, at least he was in the mix. P3 was Charles Leclerc, who drug that Ferrari up the standings there in a weekend that was painful for them. P2, Kimi Antonelli, keeping the good form, but it was not enough. It got closer than I think Lando would have liked, but a 109.511, good enough for main GP pole for Lando Norris. All right, so obviously the big story, Max Verstappen out in Q1. Cody, what did you think they did to that car? Because apparently they made it worse.
I saved my beer for this part. I don't know what they were thinking. Apparently, they tried to take Yuki Tsunoda's setup for the car and put it on Max's car because they thought that was working for Tsunoda before. It pretty much just ended up with both of them not being able to drive the car. We've seen many times Yuki Tsunoda going out in the first part of qualifying, but this was apparently bad enough that it made Max go out there too. And at this point, I was thinking, God, this is the end for the championship run. It still kind of was, but it was going to be painful. The statistic that I saw going around was that this was the first time that Red Bull had a double Q1 exit since 2006, I think is what it was.
I think that's like the Coulthard era.
An incredible amount of time. They had, up until that point, the longest run of not having that poor of qualifying, and it all went out the window here when you think that Max Verstappen still had the shot at the title. So it was very surprising, almost a gimme that they were going to take any kind of penalty that they could take to try to do something to that car going into Sunday, because with the car performing that poorly, there was nothing to be gained going into Sunday. And what they ended up doing was just that. They gave Max Verstappen's vehicle a completely new power unit. They changed the setup on the car. All of this entailed that they needed to start from the pit lane, which was going to be rough, but if they could get the car actually working, it was going to certainly be worth it, because you really weren't going to be starting that much farther back at this point.
Yeah.
Other big things here, Lando Norris, Kimi Antonelli, still looking just as good as they had in the sprint qualifying. Oscar Piastri bounced back from his sprint race mishaps and, still put it on the second row. Charles Leclerc always amazes me with qualifying, because it seems like you can give him a really, really shitty car and he'll still put it like in the top two rows. Even so, even if there's not going to be any, performance there during the race, he's still able to extract some awesome one-lap pace out of that, which you saw here. Didn't happen with Lewis Hamilton, though. Unfortunately, Lewis Hamilton was way down in P13. Very frustrated with his weekend up to this point, and it didn't really get a whole lot better for him either.
No. I mean, that was a harbinger of things to come. And as soon as I saw Max Verstappen out, I thought the same thing you did. I said, well, that's a pit lane start. I mean, there's no way you keep that car with whatever they put on it is going to go out on Sunday. If anything, the fact that he was out in Q1 made that decision probably 10 times easier, because if he's out in like P11, I don't think they do it. I don't know. Maybe not. But the fact that it was that far down, you had one car, Gabby Bortoletto not even being there. So you really only thought like, okay. And then as it turns out, Esteban Ocon does the same thing and, puts his car out of park for May. And when I saw the breaking thing on my phone on Sunday morning, I went, that's not breaking news. We all saw that thing coming, because you knew that was the move. And that was the right strategic move all the way around. So whatever they did on Sunday, boy, did that re-energize the car, because it looked like a completely different race car to what we saw on Saturday. But yeah, I mean, as far as my perspective goes, for Lando Norris, it was job done. Another good session. Didn't make it easy, though. Had a lockup going on his first Q3 run. He dominates the first two qualifying, no problem. The third one, the first sector was not good, because he locked up and almost got shoved off. Finished the lap. He would have been 10th if not for the final qualifying lap. And you're always nervous when you're down to that and you don't have the banker in there, because yellow flags can happen, red flags can happen. You don't have time to do anything if something like that does occur. Luckily for him, it did not, and he gets his lap in. All right, so we will flip over. Now we were done with the storm, or so we thought. We were done with the windy part of the storm, and we were left with just some clouds, and of course that 20-ish% chance of rain, which showed up about 20 minutes before the lights went out. But it wasn't a heavy rain. It wasn't, everyone ended up starting up on slicks, but we shall start as we are apt to do with our back markers. And notice who's not here, I think is the better answer, given where he started. Gabby Bortoleto. I feel bad for the Brazilian fans. They came out in droves to watch their hero, and despite he basically never completes a racing lap. And Lance Stroll, you're a freaking dick, dude. He shoves him off, and it was just a terrible move. I'm not very happy with Lance Stroll for that one. Yeah. So he gets the dreaded DNF after the Herculean effort to put that car back together. I felt so bad for those mechanics. Like, it harkens me back to the Williams video where they're going to have to ship that car back and it's going to be in pieces and they're going to try to salvage what they can. Sucks for them. The other not classified finishers, the bad weekend that kept going for Ferrari. We will talk about why Charles Leclerc is down here. We will also talk about why Lewis Hamilton is down here. Both of them did not get to the checkered flag. 17 was Yuki Tsunoda. P16 was Lance Stroll. P15 was Franco Colapinto. P14 was Fernando Alonso. And P13, it was a slightly salvage to the weekend, but not really good, was Carlos Sainz in the Williams. The big thing to talk about here in the back markers is why is Charles Leclerc down here after only 5 laps? And that would be because the virtual safety, or was it virtual safety car then? No, it was a full safety car.
No, it was a full safety car for that first
full safety car, lap 2. So all of the giant kerfuffles of lap 1, which had Lewis Hamilton getting involved, which had Lance Stroll and Gabby Bortoleto, and Bortoleto was unable to continue, and that brought out the full safety car. So they peel Gabby Bortoleto's poor car off the circuit. They reset the barriers. We go racing again. And Oscar Piastri, who I've complimented on a lot of times saying, boy, can that dude do an overtake? And he saw an opportunity to do an overtake going into turn 1. He was sitting, I think, in 5th at the time and would have made it all the way up to P. He's on the inside. Kimi Antonelli's in the middle and Leclerc's on the outside. Oscar locks up a little bit, has really nowhere to go. Antonelli's right on top of him. Oscar hits Antonelli. Antonelli then hits Leclerc. Leclerc goes spinning off, loses a tire, and Oscar suddenly finds himself in P2. Championship back on. Maybe things are looking up. And as soon as I saw it, I went, whoa! And I went, oh no, they're probably not going to be nice to him there. And they were not. The stewards were not. A 10-second penalty for causing the collision. The steward's decision that I read talked nothing more about, where was he at the apex of the corner? I don't know. This one is very much on the limit. I felt like if there was ever a racing incident, this was as close as it that you can get. But given the rules that we had, I got it. I just hate these rules, man. It sucks.
Yeah, they do suck. To me, this was just a racing incident for, crap that happens when all the cars are bunched up on a restart. And Lando Norris waited a very, very long time to get going. And that really bunched up everyone heading into the first turn. And yeah, Oscar Piastri, he's fighting for that championship. Of course, he's going to be a little crazy. And he sends it up the inside. And he actually had, I feel like, a pretty good shot at that move. Problem is Kimi Antonelli probably didn't figure he was going to be going quite so ham. And this decides he's gonna turn in. On top of that, he doesn't really have anywhere to go because Charles Leclerc is on the outside of him, and like you said, there's that chain reaction. Charles Leclerc got whapped pretty hard by Antonelli because his suspension was broken right away. The tire flies off the wheel, and he's out. He managed to get off the road enough on his own that they only called a virtual safety car at this time. But yes, I don't really agree with it being a penalty, especially with the fact that for causing a collision, there isn't really a 5-second penalty anymore. They only give out 10-second penalties, which to me felt pretty heavy-handed for the incident. It completely took Oscar Piastri out of contention for the win, and that was pretty disappointing to me, considering I thought he was making a pretty good comeback from his sprint performance. But that's what they decided to do, and he got pretty screwed for it, in my opinion.
And the thing that sucks is in his position, there's no appealing it because you have to take it at the next stop or you risk having it maybe added to your race time. I almost wish you could make that determination as a team where you could say, well, we're just going to blitz this end of the race and see where we finish and add the 10 seconds on at the end. Or, I wish there was an option, but there wasn't. So they had to take it at the pit stop, and it felt like an eternity, and it was an eternity. Yeah, I mean, I thought, given the rules that we have, it's like you read the decision and you say, well, I don't really know that I have a counter argument for it, but at the same time, if we let lap 1 of Mexico go and we say that's the start of a race and people are driving all over the creation of the Mexico circuit and coming back on, yeah, I mean, Piastri doesn't have an opportunity really to give any of the positions back, especially to Leclerc, because Leclerc's kind of gone. But at the same time, you almost wonder if there was any way that he could have atoned for it and not necessarily gotten that harsh of a penalty. Because even in P3, I still think he was okay. But just the thing that bothered me about it was, like, the one thing that I would tell all 3 drivers, Max, Lando, Oscar, stay out of the steward's room. Once you go in there, you have no idea what the fuck is going to happen, because I can't tell you what the hell is going to happen. And as soon as I saw that, I saw it on timing and I went, oh, Antonelli and Leclerc took each other out. And then I saw what actually happened and I went,
See, when that incident happened, my gut reaction was that, God, Piastri is going to get a penalty for it.
Yep.
And then when we watched the replay, I actually started going the other way, being like, maybe he'll actually get away with that one, because it was really close. He was a pretty good way up the inside of Antonelli going into that turn, and I feel like Kimi probably should have left him a little more room. So I thought that, that he was going to get off easy, and lo and behold, he did not.
Right.
That is unfortunate for him. Not quite as unfortunate of a weekend, though, that Lewis Hamilton had.
Yeah.
Because, man, he got into some stuff at the very beginning of the race where he lost his front wing, ended up with some damage to the floor. So he's already on the back foot because he comes in. He's got to change that wing, and he's lost some performance from the car as well. He was complaining at that point that it was really hard to drive. You could tell that he kind of wanted to throw in the towel at that point. He's like, I'll keep going, but it's going to be rough. Later on, he ends up getting a penalty. I forget for what.
It was a 5 second for causing a collision because he was so far in the back. I think
he gets a penalty for that. And at that point, I'm like, okay, well, that's it. Like, immediately, my thought is they're going to have him come in. He's going to serve his penalty. He's going to go around, do like a couple more laps, and then they're going to retire him. And that is exactly what happened. So really, really rough one for Hamilton. Really rough for Ferrari in general. Double DNF. That one really stings. They never really got this weekend going. Other people that didn't get the weekend going, Yuki Tsunoda. Holy God!
Oh my Lord!
Yeah, he
gets the penalty, then does it.
Yeah, he had a 10-second penalty for causing a collision after pretty much running at the back. He then comes in to serve his penalty, and I think one of the wheel guys missed the memo because he immediately starts working on the wheel, and so then he gets another 10-second penalty for not serving the first 10-second penalty correctly. And I was almost thinking that maybe there was going to be some kind of wild strategy that was going to come into play from that, because he was so far back that he stood to be lapped. It looked like possibly by the leaders. And as we'll get into in a few minutes here, there was a period of time where Max Verstappen was unbelievably leading the race. And I thought, man, how wild would it be if the strategy becomes that they're going to leave Verstappen hanging out there. He's going to lap Tsunoda, and they're going to leave Tsunoda out there to be a wall to the charging Lando Norris. And, that could have been crazy. Red Bull didn't think that was in the cards. Like I said, we'll get to that in a minute, but it's just another weekend to me that is proving that Tsunoda's career in F1 is probably done.
Yeah, I mean, I think the decision, from a lot of places that I've read, I think the decision has been made. I think they've just, like, he's got a contract. We might as well see the end of the contract. And Abu Dhabi might be interesting. Maybe they pull what Alpine did last year and just say you're out of the car at the last weekend. But I don't know. But there is not any there that I'm seeing to argue in his favor to say that he should stay in that car or stay in the Red Bull family. I think his prospects are in other places, and I think he knows it. So I think sports cars are probably calling, and probably more than likely in his future, and he'll probably have a great career doing that because he's a good driver. He's just not cut out for that machine. A few are, apparently. All right. So we'll get into the midfield, which starts with Esteban Ocon in the Haas and Alex Albon not quite getting into the points, but they were close to them. Your points finishers start with Pierre Gasly, back-to-back days, back-to-back points. It's an Alpine tsunami, man. 2 points on the weekend for them. P9 was Nico Hulkenberg. P8 with some very feisty radio. Last time it was Fernando Alonso who was testifying. Isaac Hadjar and his engineer, it got a little awkward there a couple times on his radio this weekend. Woo! In the Racing Bull. P7, Racing Bull on Racing Bull drama, especially at the last lap. Liam Lawson comes home P7 and wins the intra-team battle there. P6, a guy who's just slowly but surely putting together a hell of a second half of the year in a car that probably doesn't deserve to be there, but Ollie Behrman is extracting stuff out of that Haas. It's quite amazing to see. I mean, you look at where his teammate is compared to where he is. 8 big points for Haas is huge for them. 5, only managing to get back to P5 after the 10-second penalty. We talked about that incident. Oscar Piastri in the McLaren, almost trying to chase down George Russell in the Mercedes, whose second half of the race kind of went away from him with some brake issues. And then your podium. We're just going to go right into it. From the pit lane to the podium. Oh my God. Hot knife through butter, man. Max Verstappen in the Red Bull. I thought there were 2 things that had me scared to death. 1, I thought they were going to hang him out there at the end in front of Lando, make Lando pass him. And 2, I thought he was going to actually capture and get past Kimi Antonelli because it looked like it was just a matter of time. Those soft tires just didn't have enough in it. But P1, getting it done when he absolutely had to have it these 2 weekends. He maxes out on the weekend points. Lando Norris, fastest in all sessions, as it turns out, and the win. 25 big points there to add to these 8 points, 33-point weekend. Championship incoming, it looks like. Maybe it's actually possible. Oh my God, I never thought we'd actually get here. Woo! But Cody, Max Verstappen put on a show for you and everybody else. It looked like I couldn't believe how quickly he got through the midfield, especially early. It was unreal. And then he had to puncture too.
It was nuts, and he definitely had a roller coaster of a race. And for the second race in a row, mind you, we were teased with the P2 that just didn't quite get there. This time, I wasn't really that upset about that because it looked like at the very end there, he was giving it everything he could, and he just wasn't going to get there. Whereas, at the last race, I thought for sure he was going to get there, and he got kind of screwed by the safety car. But I digress. Roller coaster of a race. He starts off on the hard from the pit lane. I believe it was during the virtual safety car incident, that second incident where Leclerc ended up being out of the race. He goes over some debris, gets a puncture on the hard. The team has to pit him. But this ended up probably being a good thing because most of the teams did not like the hard. They were not getting great times out of it, and they weren't really getting that great durability out of it because I guess a lot of that Brazil track ended up kind of sliding around a lot through the turns, and that really does a number on your durability. So the hard really wasn't a great tire to go with.
So you're telling me our friend Deg was back after like 4 weeks of no Deg, 4 races of no Deg. We finally got some Deg.
We got real Deg because the medium did look like the race tire to be on, but even that was falling off a cliff enough that teams were pitting. I think most teams did a 2-stop. Max ended up doing a 3-stop, but yeah, he's on that medium. He's cutting through the midfield. He's getting somebody most of the DRS zones down that main straight. Comes in for his second stop, and I think at that point, after the second stop, he comes out already in front of Piastri. He's able to get by, pretty much everybody. And then the front runners take their last, what was going to be their last pit stop, and you've got Max Verstappen out in the lead by, I think it was like about 8 seconds ahead of Lando. And I was thinking like, holy crap, even though I don't think there's a chance in hell he's going to win, the fact that he has gotten to a point where he's actually leading this Grand Prix is wild. And yes, I had the same thought for a brief moment of, I wonder what'll happen if they leave him out there to try to just fight for the win or whatever he can do, because Max is so aggressive, probably would have fought pretty hard for the lead there. But I think the team saw the same thing that I saw, which was that gap ahead of Norris was shrinking really fast.
Yeah.
Way too much time left in the race. Lando was going to catch him really quick. And as we said, those tires pretty much were getting to a point this weekend with the Deg where they were falling off a cliff. And I think that's probably what the team figured. I've seen a lot of commentary on social media, for instance, saying that, hey, I think leaving him out there was the right call, but I disagree. The gap was closing way too fast. Maybe he might have been able to keep P2. We won't really ever know. But what they ended up doing was they saw that he was getting caught quickly. I assume they decided to pit him and put him on soft tires, which I thought was an interesting choice too, because there was still maybe like 15-ish laps left, I think, in the Grand Prix at that point. And the soft tires were going really quick. It was funny. After he was out for like 3 laps, pounding in great lap times, the commentary was already saying like, oh yeah, you can see his lap times dropping off. And I was like, holy crap, dropping off? There's only been 3 laps. How's he going to make those last? Fights all the way back to P3. He's given Antonelli everything he's got. And to Kimi's credit, he held him off. He could have made a mistake. He could have not had the pace there at the end, with the 4-time champion breathing down your neck. But he held him up and did what he needed to do. So props to Antonelli, his best career finish in a Grand Prix to date. But obviously, massive respect for Max Verstappen to fight back from starting in the pit lane and get to P. All of the drivers who have ever done that are among the greatest of all time. They were saying like, Hamilton's done that, Michael Schumacher's done that, and it's like, yeah, you're among the greatest there.
And he did it in dry conditions. This was not weather aided. This was not, we know Max in the wet. Yeah, nothing. I mean, you knew he was going to have a safety car or a stoppage to get back into it, starting from the pit lane. And as soon as he got the lap 2, I said, well, there's the safety car. I said, there goes that quick. And then, I was shocked that he pitted when he did the first time because I didn't realize he had a puncture, that obviously came out later. I went, that's odd timing. I said, boy, he got rid of those hards. So I said, I would have thought, you'd leave him out there till they drop off, until he says no more. But that actually then changed. Max getting off the hard tires when he did and having the negative feedback, I think, on the hard tires got everybody else talking. And all of a sudden, McLaren are looking at Lando and going, we may do plan D. And I go, we go down that far? Like, this is not how this is supposed to go. So, and I'm like, what does that mean? Well, that basically meant a 2-stop, guaranteed 2-stop, medium to soft, mid-stint, back to medium again. And, anytime you add extra pit stops, it's extra chances for stuff to happen. We saw obviously what happened with Oscar and how, you add 10 seconds to a pit stop and that can kill your race. So, it was a tense watch, man. You look at it, you say, oh, Lando led pretty much from pole and it really wasn't challenged. It was a tense watch from my perspective, man, especially with Max coming. And every time I keep looking at the lap times, I'm like, that's the same time Lando's putting up and he's in traffic. If he gets in clean air, yeah. I was,
the fact it was only
very
difference
nervous.
10 seconds, 11 seconds about at the end is a testament to just how crazy that comeback was.
Right. So, I mean, when he's on, this is the stuff we talk about. You like him, you don't like him, you got to respect it because, damn, that was a thing on Sunday. But Lando gets the job done, gets the maximum points. Championship now suddenly seems very, very possible. I'm still a little nervous about
beyond possible. It's likely.
I know, but I'm still a little like, well, again, that's me. I'm not going to have it happen until I see the points come out. And then 2 hours after the race ends, you'll see me go nuts. And the FIA did stuff again this weekend where they couldn't count the penalty points. And so they kept recalling penalty documents and reissuing them. And we got to like 3:00 local time here and they still hadn't called the race official. I'm like, what the fuck, if anything, happened? But McLaren have done their celebration. They usually know if there's a problem. But no, there was no issue. It was just the FIA forgot how to count. But anyway, gets it done, opens the gap. He's got almost a full race on Oscar now. He's got almost 2 full races on Max. We can be bleh in Vegas, and we now have a shield against that. So I do still think Max is going to be the favorite for Max with that power unit and that long ass straight and the way that they work in cooler conditions. I think Max is the favorite. The Mercedes usually go really well when it's cool. McLaren are just average. P4 is okay, is my opinion of that race, because that would still be their best finish in Vegas. I think their best high is P6 in the 2 years that they've run it. So, yikes. But anyway, at least we've got some insulation against that. But what a weekend. It delivered. We thought it was going to be a big weekend. It turned out to be a big weekend. And yeah, it was one hell of a show. I mean, this is what's capable of what these cars are capable of when you actually give them enough DRS and all the other stuff, and the tires actually dag. What a concept. Amazing. Any other final thoughts before we wrap up the GP here?
Just going down the list here. Again, my props to Norris for leading every session. He has these last 2 weekends, or race weekends, looked like a championship driver. he did everything he needed to do this weekend. Again, going back to the fact that Max had a world-class drive, he still loses 10 points from the Grand Prix alone, and then 3 more points on top of that from the sprint to Lando Norris. So even though he had an awesome drive, he's still pretty much falling out of championship contention at this point, which is sad for me. But at least he's going down swinging, as you said. Some other guys in here.
Throwing haymakers, not just swinging, but throwing haymakers, man.
Oliver Behrman, 2 weekends in a row as well, continuing to impress strongly in that Haas. It wasn't podium contention this time, but still another fantastic result for him. George Russell, definitely didn't have a bad weekend. One of the rare times this season we see his teammate getting the better of him. He did have a little bit of a frustrated radio message with his race engineer at one point, where his engineer came over the radio and said, "Just so you know, your brakes are kind of overheating. We need you to manage that." And he was like, "Why didn't you tell me before that I need to manage that?
You tell me when they're bad enough, and then I'll manage them."
Yep. But yeah, last little bit there is those 2 Racing Bull drivers, Liam Lawson and Isaac Hadjar, pretty much got into each other at the very end, last lap of that race. I have to imagine the dynamic there is pretty tense because they're both fighting for their career in some capacity. Isaac Hadjar has shown very well this year, so he's fighting to make his case, I'm sure, for the Red Bull seat. Liam Lawson is making his case that he deserves to stay in Formula One in general. So it was interesting seeing that kind of come to a head at the end of the race. And 4 points, mind you. They both finished in the points, which is a fantastic result for Racing Bulls. But yeah, it just goes to show you that it's not just what's happening at the front. There's lots of action and good stories and important things happening all throughout the field.
Yeah, absolutely. Like that was, I think, the theme that I got when I rewatched the race was, oh my God, there was so much happening. The first watch, I'm at the front. I was watching Lando all the way. I mean, I'm not going to lie about it. But when I open it up and you go, okay, well, what else was going on? You see the V-carb on V-carb collision and you go, whoa, that's a thing. Isaac Hadjar is getting testy with his race engineer, and his race engineer was giving it back to him. And it was like, whoa, what is going on at Racing Bull? Ollie Behrman in Quali 2 was sitting P3 on pure pace at one point. And you harken back to the Kevin Magnussen shock sprint pole. That was weather aided, but this wasn't weather aided at all. I mean, maybe it was because the wind gusts of that cyclone, maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. We'll never know. But I mean, just the fact that there's all this stuff happening. When we get to the team standings are ridiculously tight all the way up and down. So everybody's got something to play for. And that's what, to me, makes the Max thing that much more impressive. They didn't just all get out of the way. I mean, there were some drivers that said, well, he's not in my race. I'm not going to try to hold him up or anything. But he was going through guys who had something to play for. So that just makes it all the more impressive to me. I love this Brazil track. I wish we could. Why they're taking a sprint away from here? This is the place where it should always have a sprint. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You should just lock it in.
It's wild to me that they're getting rid of that because this is among the best tracks for a sprint.
Right. Yes. It always throws something up. It is always entertaining. They're knife edge sessions all the way through. No offense to the good people of Singapore, but I think the story of that is going to be who survives it versus here, who raced it. So I'll take this 10 times over 10. And if you're going to do a sprint format, like to me, this one should just get grandfathered in. That would be if I was running the world, something I would do. But anyway, what a weekend. So we're going to take a quick break. We'll re-rack. We'll come back. We'll tell you what this did to the points, the drivers. Some gaps are opening. Other gaps are closing. The team standings. Oh my God, there's changes. Not huge changes in position, but it is so tight for P2, for P6. There's tons of teams in it. And even Alpine got a couple points this weekend. So, I get to finally say they got off their schneid. Don't have to say 20 points anymore for Alpine, which is good. We'll then open it up to what you guys had to say on the weekend in the fan email segment. We've got a great contributors here as always. We'll hand out some awards. I have a rather odd, rubbish one. Well, you'll understand it once I explain what happened. And then we'll hand out the rest of our awards. We'll talk about predictions, and then we'll set up in 2 weeks. Viva Las Vegas. They are coming back to the USA a couple hours earlier. It's not going to be the 3 a.m. race ending time. Yay! Anyway, come on back. We'll get into it.
You are listening to the Outlap F1 podcast, and we'll be right back after this quick pit stop. grab your flu powder, broomstick, or apparate to your favorite audio streaming service to join the discussion on Hogwarts, a podcast, where Dan and his friends have in-depth chapter-by-chapter breakdowns of each Harry Potter novel. Join the group as they dive into the magical world and discuss plot points, analyze character development, and occasionally go off the rails. Whether you're a muggle who's new to the series or a pure-blood wizard who won't need a remember-all, Hogwarts, a podcast, brings everyone to the Great Hall for a magical discussion. Hogwarts, a podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts.
All right, welcome back on in. This is Season 7, Episode number 41 of the Outlap F1 podcast. It's our 2025 Sao Paulo GP, Brazil GP review show. You've got Andy. I'm along with Cody tonight. And we just recapped, a lot of sessions. They were all knife-edge sessions, at least from my perspective, all the way around. I texted you a couple times and said, my ticker can't handle this, man. This is verified air up here. I don't know that I like this, but this is what you do when you're riding the roller coaster, baby. But anyway, what does this do to all of the standings? Cody, as always, if you take the drivers, I will handle the teams.
Lando Norris, currently leading the drivers' standings for McLaren at 390 points now. He's opened up the gap to his teammate Oscar Piastri to a 24-point gap, almost one race win. So Oscar is at 366 points and almost two race wins back to Max Verstappen. The gap there is 49 points. Max is at 341. I don't want to jinx anything, so I'm going to knock on some wood here for you. But I'm willing to say that Lando has one hand on the trophy at this point. We'll just have to hope that he continues to do well over these next couple of weekends. Fourth place is George Russell for Mercedes at 276 points. Charles Leclerc hold on to fifth place for Ferrari at 214. And then Lewis Hamilton, his teammate, and the other Ferrari, sixth place at 148 points. Kimi Antonelli getting a great haul of points this weekend, finishing second in the sprint, finishing second in the Grand Prix. So he is up to 122 points. Alex Albon, unfortunately, not able to score any points in the Grand Prix this time out, but he is still in eighth place for Williams, 73 points. And then something interesting here, ninth place and 10th place. Nico Hülkenberg and Isaac Hadjar tied at 43 points apiece. And I have not looked at the moment, but I imagine that 11th, 12th, 13th, all probably pretty close as well, fighting for that top half of finishing.
It's six drivers within 8 points. So that could change. And Hülkenberg's got P9 because of his podium at the British Grand Prix. So what does that tell you? But as for the teams, I mean, we know what P1 is. McLaren, Mercedes have clinched. They are up to 756 points on the season. But the battle for P2 raging on. And if you're Ferrari, yikes, bad time to have a bad time. P2, Mercedes up to 398. They've opened up a bit of a gap now. P3 is now Red Bull. They have overtaken Ferrari. 366 points for them. P4 is Ferrari, 362. P5, like I said before, I'm pretty sure Williams will finish the season P5. And that's a hell of an achievement for a team that has put no development into this car. So great job, James Vowles and Williams for sure. But P6, oh my Lord, the battle for P6. Racing Bulls has it right now. They are on 82. They are 10 points in front of P7 Aston Martin, who has 72, only a scant 2 points. And now the hard-charging Ollie Behrman and Haas team up now to 70 points. P9 is Kick Sauber. Don't count them out of this equation yet. They're scoring points. They're up to 62 points. And P10 will probably be Alpine, but they're going to be the best P10 team ever, up 2 points on the season. All right, so you've heard our takes on the Brazil Sao Paulo GP, whatever you want to call it, but this weekend was absolutely epic. What did you guys think of it? It's our fan email segment. We've got our regulars here. We've got Rachel Fleming. We've got Dave Doherty. Cody, I'll let you start with Miss Fleming. What does she have to say?
All right. Thank you, Rachel, for your email. And Rachel says, delivers again. The momentum is with Lando. He's on such a charge now, and the points gap is extending, but this championship could turn on its head again, so don't count anything out yet, barring Russell winning the championship. What a weekend from Kimi. Like Miami, he was on pace, and he had the better hand of the beating of Russell as well. A shame that the majority of F1 races are in Europe. Yes, Max was outstanding in the race. Yuki less so. What a dreadful error from the team about Yuki's penalty. It's almost like they are trying any excuse to get rid of him, although Yuki is causing a lot of issues himself. Ferrari. Oh dear. Lewis caused his own downfall, and Charles was the clear victim of Kimi versus Oscar. A great race again from Ollie Behrman, really finishing the season with a lot of momentum. And lastly, Alonso Watch was part of the F1 drag race at the end, but had a little pace throughout. And I didn't hear any funny radio either. I always get a kick out of the Fernando radio. It was pretty quiet this time.
Yeah.
They didn't really have a lot to broadcast for him. And honestly, pretty quiet race for him overall. Unfortunately, not finishing in the points this time out, at least not in the Grand Prix. But we already discussed how great Ollie Behrman's performance has been in these last couple Grand Prix, getting Haas back into a fight for a championship position in the constructors. We did talk about the Ferrari awful weekend. Yes, Lewis caused some of his own problems by qualifying where he did, but everything after that was misfortune thrown his way with the damage to the car. I don't actually even remember the incident where he got his penalty. I guess you could put that one on him as well, but he was already in a rotten spot, from lap one. So I'm not sure how much of that is on him. It's probably a 50-50 split, I would say. But yeah, everything else here, I think we covered pretty well. Now, yes, the championship could turn on its head again. Maybe Oscar Piastri finally regains his pace. Maybe Lando Norris retires from the next two races and Max is back in it. Anything is possible at this point. But we're getting to the point here where there's only 83 points maximum left to grab from this. I'm trying to be realistic here when I say, for Max especially, the charge back is probably done. Who knows if he can get second in the championship? That might be cool.
Yeah. I mean,
I would say that
I was going to say, I'll use the cricket term, his required run rate got harder this weekend. I mean, it was 9 points. He needed to take 9 points per weekend off of the championship leader, whether that was Lando or Oscar heading into this weekend. And, to lose 13 points makes it that much more difficult. So
now he could gain 16 points a weekend and he still won't win. So it's definitely a very, very tall order. He pretty much needs to rely on Lando's misfortune at this point. And considering how well Lando has been performing recently, in fact, he's got 2 retirements on the year, but I mean, it's a lot easier to not retire when you're running up front. So it's definitely a long shot. I'm willing to concede that Oscar has a much better chance of making a comeback, but even that is still getting to be a little bit of a tall order with almost a race gap between them, and how poorly Piastri has been performing over these last 5 or 6 races. It's been bad.
Yeah,
for him.
I mean,
and it's not all his fault, but damn,
this is the one. Yeah, I mean, this is the first one that actually just felt like, God damn, you'd think if you had no luck, he only has bad luck, because I mean, he finally looks like he was finally back on the ball. He wasn't quite to Lando, but it was there. He was in the range. He was 2-3 tenths off. He was qualifying pretty well. Car looked like it was working for him. And then, he just hits a puddle. I mean, anybody could have had that happen to them. And all of a sudden I'm just watching him on the timing, and all of a sudden I just watch it drop, and I just went, holy shit, was my exact word out of my mouth when it happened, because I couldn't believe it. It's going to take something bad happening to Lando and something good happening to both, either Oscar or Max, and they will have to capitalize on it. Now, the one thing that I have read about maybe Qatar is they're already talking about that being a potential mandatory two-stop, like they did in Monaco, because they've got those curbs. And, what it tells me is that's not a good track for these cars.
No, they continue to have
right. Like, this is not the first time we've had issues here. And we keep going back there, and whether it's too freaking hot or it's hotter than the sun in one part of the year, we had another one where we had mandatory 3 stops where we could only do 15 laps on a set of tires because we were afraid that they were all going to go kablamo on everybody. That tells you something isn't right. And maybe, just maybe, it's the racetrack that we're racing on. But so that could be something that could throw an issue. Abu Dhabi is Abu Dhabi. I mean, I think McLaren know that track pretty well. I think they're confident in it. Lando won there last year. So, but you never know. So to me, as a Lando fan, I'm saying, get this done before Abu Dhabi. Do not leave it all the way to the end. Let's just enjoy a victory lap if we can get one. Yeah. I tweeted yesterday, I said, boy, yesterday was one of the better sporting days that I can remember in a long time. My favorite driver wins. My football team won. The hockey team won. And I was winning in fantasy football this weekend. So hot damn, it just doesn't happen that way. Every now and again, you get one. So I'll take it where I can find it, man. But yeah, it feels like it finally does feel realistically possible, if not probable, that this is actually going to happen for him this year.
All right. Thank you, Rachel, again for your email. Our next one comes in from Dave Doherty. Thank you, Dave. And he says, "Hi, team. Your thoughts on Verstappen's race weekend and a well-deserved Lando win. McLaren's strategy was good. What are your thoughts? Also, Mercedes did well this weekend. I mean, but McLaren's strategy was pretty spot on. They won the sprint and they won the Grand Prix with Lando. I did think it was interesting that they had to pull an audible and change up Lando's strategy all the way to plan D, like you said. But they handled it very well. All the top teams really had great pit stops in the Grand Prix.
Yeah.
I was thinking that if anyone was going to slip, that was going to be where it was at. Pretty much everyone was sub 2.5 seconds. So there was one where they came in, it was like 3.3. I don't remember who that was for. Maybe Lewis or something. But even so, that's not a bad stop.
Right.
McLaren was on it with their stops, nailed it pretty much each time for Lando, which was great. Max's race weekend we've discussed pretty thoroughly, and that it was atrocious early on. Well, actually, it was bad early, then it became atrocious. And then they somehow worked some voodoo magic on that car and made it into a top performer.
Who's their sim driver? I think it's Sebastian Buemi from Formula E, who I think they basically strap to their simulator and like pull feedback out of him for 12 hours or something.
Uh-huh.
That's what I kind of thought was
this work.
Well, that's pretty much what, you're sitting there and you got to think, you think you get to Saturday and it's a sprint format. You're like, the car's in park for May. I can go to, no, Sebastian, get your ass back here. We got problems, bud. You're going to sit here and you're going to figure this thing out. And they did. That's what's so amazing about it. Like these cars, the thing I have no idea what the next iteration of these cars are going to do, but the thing that will just stick with me is how narrow the window is on a lot of these cars and how just that little off if you are, how bad it gets, how quickly. Like we've seen weekends, McLaren in Canada, they were bad. Red Bull here, just inexplicable after being just almost invincible past the Italy updates. And, who was we were chatting in the group chat and, Chris Medlin was coming on to the US qualifying show. And he was saying that what he thought, and it turned out not to be, but what he thought might have happened was maybe Red Bull brought that update to Mexico and that maybe did something to the car. And I was like, you're telling me Red Bull updated themselves out of their window? Like, could that have happened? And I'm like, and it was back to the same old argument where like, well, they think it's faster, but Max doesn't. I'm like, this is the same stuff that you did that got him in trouble in the first place, which I thought you'd engineered your way out of it. But apparently that was not what was the case. It was, it was the suspension. It was the setup. It was how Max likes to drive the car. And the best thing that could have happened was actually being as bad as it was. Because like I said, I think if it's P12 or P11, I don't know that they do it. But they made it an easy call here.
Yeah. And as far as Mercedes goes, they did have a great weekend. Double podium.
Kimi Antonelli just loves not being in Europe.
I mean, so.
Especially, and he loves this continent. He shows really well, which tells me he's going to be on it for Vegas. That may be your sleeper bet, Kimi Antonelli to take the maiden win in Vegas.
You never know. I mean, didn't George Russell win Las Vegas last year? So Mercedes, at least last year, showed great in Las Vegas, and Red Bull and McLaren were nowhere. So I think the dynamic of the Red Bull car is a little different this year. That makes it more suited for Vegas, but I definitely think you could see a lot of different teams in it for Las Vegas just because it is a crazy low downforce, high speed track. See Mercedes, you might see Ferrari maybe get back into play here a little bit. It's going to be all to fight for, and we're getting to that point in the season where everyone is like trying to get their last podiums, their last chances at a victory. Ferrari, God, is after almost winning the constructors last year, they don't have a Grand Prix win this year.
All is not well in Ferrari land. It came out today, John Elkann publicly criticizing both of his drivers, basically telling them to stop talking and get with the program. And that's a guy who you did not expect to hear that from. So, And that's an interesting stance in the world of social media that we all live in. We all know who drives for them. So wow. So yeah, and all not good in Ferrari land. And I think that's a team that's looking for the rules reset. I think Mercedes are hungry for the rules reset too, but they've got as good a chance. This Vegas track, I think, suits them, and it's going to be cool. It's not going to be as dead in the middle of the night as normally the race is, but it still means once the sun goes down at that time of the year in Vegas, it gets cold fast. Doesn't take much.
Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you guys again for your emails. We love to see them. I'd love to see the same. I love that we've got some friends out there that love contributing to the show every race weekend. So we definitely like your guys' takes and look forward to hearing.
We have a little outlap community here. It's really quite amazing that we've been able to procure and to keep you guys. So we love talking racing with you guys. So keep it coming. All right. So we will move on to our awards, and we will start with the rubbish. Cody, I'll let you go first on this one. What you got?
I'm almost considering changing up my rubbish award at the last second here because we talked about some of the penalties at length, and I'm almost kind of talking myself out of that the penalties were rubbish. I was mostly focused on the Oscar Piastri penalty being rubbish, and I guess maybe that's enough for me to stick with it here. It was on the limit of being a penalty. Really, really, having seen the replay, I really don't think he deserved a penalty, and I understand that you have to kind of look at each incident in a vacuum if you're the stewards that are making these calls, but you really did a number on his championship chances here over something that, really wasn't truly a penalty, especially a 10-second penalty. I mean, I guess Charles Leclerc retired as a result of this incident, but I don't think it was all Piastri's fault. They were going 3 wide into the turn. Damn it.
And he was
you're going to have crazy stuff happen.
And at one point, he's alongside, if not a little bit past Antonelli right before the braking zone. He's level with him. And then just the nature of the corner is why Antonelli, pulls a little bit ahead there. So it's tough. Like I said, I don't love the rules. I mean, we are getting at least a consistent application of them, so I guess I should shut up. But whatever. It just didn't feel right to me. That having been said, my rubbish award goes out to a story off track that kind of pissed me off before even the racing weekend started. The story came out of New Zealand. It was something from the Bruce McLaren Trust put out a tweet that apparently somebody thought it was a good idea to spray paint Bruce McLaren's grave in New Zealand with yellow paint and stick like toy cars on it and deface it. And look, I don't care whether you like McLaren or you hate McLaren or whatever. You're entitled to that opinion, and I'm not going to take you off of it, regardless of what you have. But do not take the gravestone of one of the founding members of this sport, whether you like it or not. That dude is essential as Enzo Ferrari is to this sport. It's one of the reasons that we're all here. And do that type of shit to his gravestone. There is a cold place for whoever did that. And yeah, so the good news is that there has been foundations that have stepped up and said that they're going to help to restore the graves. But currently right now, you can't go visit the gravesite. And that's a tragedy because Cody, had I been able to go with you on your wedding adventure, that would have been a stop for me. I would have made it a point to go visit Bruce McLaren's grave and pay homage to what was just a great guy and a hell of a racer. He just loved racing. So to the individual who did that, into the rubbish bin with you, and may you never come out. The other on-track one, I guess, Oscar losing it in the sprint was really not good timing. Ouch.
It's putting it mildly.
Yeah, I mean, you wanted to go, dude, you were fine. What are you doing on that curb? That was like where I wanted to go. I'm like, you didn't have to do that. I get you're trying to squeeze every bit out of the race car, and that's kind of what got you there. But P3 was okay. You were going to be okay. 2 points were not going to kill you. And instead, it just avalanched quicker. And as we've talked about, these sprint weekends, you don't get a reprieve. If you got to make sure that time between the end of the sprint and the main quali is so critical to dial that car in its last little bit that you don't have any other opportunity. If your team is busy rebuilding your car, you don't have that time to do that because they're too busy rebuilding the car. So I think that affected his qualifying. It definitely affected, I think, what happened to him in the race. Obviously, the 10-second penalty didn't help, but I was more upset with the losing it on your own in the sprint than anything else. So anyway, all right, we'll move on. Analysis paralysis. Cody, I'll let you go first. I think we're in agreement here, but what you got?
This one's easy for me. It is whatever the hell Red Bull was thinking for their qualifying setup. They went way, way in the wrong direction from what they had done in sprint, and it really made you wonder, what were they thinking? Like, how could they have made the car worse from, Max qualifying P6? Yeah, it got way, way, way worse. And yeah, fortunately, they were able to further analyze and become less paralyzed going into the race, but it was looking really rough there.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you here. You have to wonder what Red Bull did to that car that made it so bad. Because it was like the parts of the car that were good were like, they were okay in the straight bits. They just had to get a little bit better in the twisty bits, and I think they would have been okay, but it just never materialized. And then they went to the high downforce setup, and that just killed whatever the strengths of the car were. And then you could obviously tell that they went back and they said, no, low downforce, make the thing so that it can overtake in the straight. And Max just went to town. So sometimes the simplest solution seems to be the right one. And maybe they just overthought themselves, because that's what it felt like. That's what it looked like to me. But damn. All right. So we'll move in to our dark horse of the day. I'll go first with this one. Oliver Behrman, man, for Haas, our American F1 team, who doesn't get any respect because Cadillac's coming in and everybody forgets Haas is still there. Behrman dragging that car and outshining his teammate. Esteban Ocon is a driver with a lot of experience. He's been around a long time, and Ollie Behrman's kind of showing him up right now. And not only in sprint quality, like it's consistent now. He was in it in the sprint qualifying, was in it in the main qualifying, and showing really, really well. And you're understanding, this is why John Elkann gets pissed at his drivers, because he's got a guy like Ollie Behrman waiting in the wings. And you have to wonder if that's the next thing that gets said in Ferrari land. So yeah, Ollie Behrman, hell of a second half, man. Dark horse for me. Cody, what you got?
My dark horse is going to go to Kimi Antonelli, who has had some serious ups and downs throughout the season. This was way up for him, outshining George Russell, outshining the majority of the grid, finishing P2 in both the sprint and the Grand Prix. And in the Grand Prix, holding off a charging Max Verstappen. Really awesome skill from him this weekend, showing why he got put into the Mercedes seat as quickly as he did. It's also great when you see the young new drivers achieving these results, because they're just so excited about it. They haven't gotten to that point of Lewis Hamilton or Max Verstappen where it's just like another trophy in the cabinet. So
no, I mean they're loving it, and everything matters. Everything is a big deal for him, and that was amazing. Just keep him out of Europe, and I think he's fine. I mean, but to me, I think it's the evolution is they flash early, then there's the adjustment. Everybody adjusts to them, and then they have to adjust back. And that's what I think Antonelli has now come back on the other side of, is that adjustment back to being good and being consistent. You're seeing that, I think, with Ollie Behrman, who's had some struggles. I mean, there's been some weekends where he would love to forget as well. And we've seen all the rookies kind of go through that. Some bad weekends and some great weekends. But they're making everybody look really smart. I mean, Kimi Antonelli is making Toto Wolff look ridiculously smart right now for his driver decisions there. Driver of the day, this one is easy. Yeah, I'm a Lando fan. I'll go first. I'm thrilled that he scored max points on the weekend. But dude, Max Verstappen on Sunday was he scared the shit out of me. I thought for a minute that with 21 laps to go, he's leading the race from the frickin' pit lane. And with 15 laps to go, he's 7 seconds in front of Norris. And I'm like, I don't know if they're going to leave him out there and pull a Ferrari at Monza thing. And this thing could get off the rails a lot quicker. And all the championship points that I was counting, yeah, we might be counting in the other direction. And Max Verstappen's the only guy that could have done that. So holy crap, man. What a drive. I tip my cap, sir. Max Verstappen, driver of the day.
Yeah, you certainly can never count Max Verstappen out of anything. You can't count him out when he's starting from the pit lane. The fact that he fought all the way back to the podium shows especially how good he is at this track. Like, he has had some fantastic drives in Brazil over his career. Some best drives ever. I would throw this into the hat of best drives from Max Verstappen ever. And it does make me excited to see him continue to race going forward. He's probably going to have to fight to get that number one back on the car again. But yeah, even when he's not in it for the win, he's in it for something, and he puts in it all. So very excited, and definitely the best performance of the weekend, in my opinion.
No, I fully agree with you. And that's after Lando maxed the points. All right, so we shall turn to predictions.
Do we have to?
Yeah, well, we can do this quickly. I actually checked it like 3 times because I didn't believe it because we were all around it. Like our podiums were really close. We were just not in the right order for a lot of it. But unfortunately, Cody, you did not get any points. I got 4. I got the 2 quali time and the fastest lap time. I did get the pole sitter because I picked Lando, and I did get P1 on the podium because I also went homeboy and picked Lando there. So I did pick up a win. I extend my lead a little bit, 12-6. So yeah, so we'll just leave that there. Anyway, we go from this Brazil race, and now cue the casinos, cue the glitz, the glam, and all of that entails. Las Vegas is upon us. We got 2 weeks. We got a week off, and then the last 3. Boom, ba-boom, ba-boom. Las Vegas, Qatar, Abu Dhabi to close this season out. We still technically do have an open championship. It's been a hell of a ride. And we're not getting off of this thing by any stretch of the imagination. So we will be back in about a week or so. We will do our Las Vegas preview. We'll recap any news or anything that happened between then and now. And then we will be back to do Vegas in all of its glitz and glam, and we'll do the triple header at the end of the season, man, because it's been an epic one. It just doesn't want to let you go. I'm halfway thinking we might do this, but again, I'm not letting myself think that until I see it the math works. But I'll be on pins and needles the entire Vegas weekend for sure. But Cody, any final thoughts?
That the Vegas race has proven to be much more exciting than I ever thought it was going to be when they were initially planning it. I am excited for it. It's cool now to have been to the strip and be like, these are the stands that were put up for the F1 race, which we got to see when we were there. So yeah, now it's got that little extra special place in my heart where it's like, I was there.
We walked on that tarmac.
Yep. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to, God, please let Max have a better weekend overall. You can keep up with the world-class drives. Keep doing that. Just start better, please.
Yeah, I got a funny feeling. I think that this track will suit them. Yeah, this is the one that still makes me nervous as a McLaren fan. But anyway, we will be back for it. Viva Las Vegas. Until then, take care of yourselves out there. And as always, folks, may all your laps be fast.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Outlap F1 podcast. If you like what you heard, click that subscribe button and be sure to leave us a 5-star review. If you want to connect with us outside of the show, check out our website at www.outlapf1.com. Find us on Twitter and Instagram at OutlapF1 Podcast, or email us at chatnow@outlapf1.com.